Next up, we have Glenn Jones, who's Global Vice President, Products and Marketing with Blume Global, and Kristy Knichel, CEO and President of Knichel Logistics. Glenn has a proven track record of growing businesses by defining, developing, positioning, and selling highly innovative and high-value enterprise solutions delivered in the cloud. And as a second-generation logistics executive, Kristy is the driving force behind her firm's growth and reputation as one of the top service providers within the IMC community. In this session, Glenn and Kristy will talk about how railroads and IMCs can prepare themselves for future challenges by digitizing and automating their processes. Glenn and Kristy, take it away.
Yeah, thanks much, Kirk. Appreciate it. Yeah, Glenn Jones. So just as an introduction to Blume Global, and I'll turn it over to Kristy in a second to introduce her company, but we basically provide the Res1 platform. We rebranded to Blume Global. So we manage the EMP and UMAX programs on behalf of Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern, and then Canadian National, Canadian Pacific, other companies that run intermodal containers on rail. And so when you need to reserve one of those containers, you go to the Blume Global platform. Also, we provide intermodal TMS that kind of complements that platform that enables IMCs and other users of those intermodal containers, including marine containers, to kind of optimize their operations. Kristy, you want to do a quick intro?
Thank you for the intro, Kirk. Kristy Knichel, President and CEO of Knichel Logistics. We are a third-party logistics provider. I actually have been in the industry for 24 years. Started working for my father when I was 19, basically shipping just with the railroad. And then we expanded when we opened in 2003 to other services that we provide, truckload and LTL, but the primary that we ship is intermodal. So that's what we do.
Thanks, Kristy. So this is kind of a fireside chat type conversation. First, I wanted to highlight diversity in the industry. Since you've been working towards a more inclusive supply chain for quite some time, how has the perception of women in the supply chain changed in the past couple of years? And how are you working to improve the diversity of the logistics industry?
Well, I definitely feel that the industry has become more inclusive over the years, more so now than before, since I've been in the industry for 24 years. At my company, there's a majority of women that are employed, and several of them are leading departments within our organization. So it's becoming a more commonplace to hear a woman's voice when calling another logistics company, warehouse, carrier, etc. I think the perception of women in the supply chain has changed, in that women are a huge part of the industry now, and the old boys club perception just doesn't apply anymore or as much. As far as how I'm personally working to improve diversity, I think supporting organizations that advocate and bring awareness to the issue is a great first step. I'm a member of the Women in Trucking Association, for example, and they've done a great job highlighting the roles that women play in the industry. Sharing experiences, networking, passing on knowledge is another great way to actively work towards improving outcomes for women. I've also mentored numerous women and continue to do that. And I've been in the industry, like I said, over 20 years and have worked my way up the entire chain of command. So sharing that insight with others is a great way to level the playing field. And I also enjoy what I do and like to talk to people what I've learned along the way. So it definitely helps.
Excellent. Thanks. Yeah, we at Blume, we also see more of this, especially in the intermodal space, or in particular. We do example, Val Victoria, I think, is another company that's up and coming, and a women-led company, and they're being successful on that front. And I know it's really good to see that. And let's get on to what's happening today. So yeah, I know Knichel has experienced a challenge at the start of the year. And Kristy, you found that some cases, the impact of your business was more severe than anything you experienced in 2020. Walk me through the pain points and what you did to overcome the situations.
Yeah, I think 2020 was the most challenging year in my whole career, over 24 years period. Obviously, running into centralized logistics operations from essentially 50 different places instead of just one. So we had to overcome that issue by relying very heavily on our technology. So we immediately set into action by ordering computers, subscriptions to get everyone that works for me connected remotely from home. They've still been working from home since March of last year. So that was the first one. The second pain point really is involved navigating a lack of capacity, shutdowns, basically hobbled operations from surging e-commerce sales, stop work orders, worldwide companies, that just shut down. And we overcame the situation just by doing what we could, do to get our customers freight moving, which was looking at, multiple different options that we have at our fingertips. And a third pain point, I would say, involved in, major reconfiguring of internal processes and projects that we were planning on implementing, like bringing on a new senior director of operations and a new investment in company-wide training. We overcame those by hiring the right person for the job, thankfully, and being able to translate our training program into a digital environment. And with all the patient and with a lot of patience as well. So 2021 has been bringing major countrywide weather disruptions that are shutting down entire rail networks. Patience plays a big role this year as well. So I think coming out of last year with all those issues, we're still kind of trying to get through those issues now, but now the weather is just making it even that much worse.
Yeah, we, being in part of Blume, and a lot of what we're working on is kind of complementary, being able to find that capacity, being able to find domestic containers, or in some cases, being able to serve up marine containers if you can use a 40 or 20 foot to do the load and run that domestically back towards a seaport. And of course, that helps share the load with the ocean liners and reducing empty miles, while at the same time making sure capacity is available when you need it. And it is a challenge, though, and a big piece of that is really focused on making sure that companies like yours have the capacity when you need it, and that not just includes the containers themselves, but also sometimes it's the drayage carriers, and they're struggling on that front. The driver shortages, and so it's important to be able to maintain that kind of a network and be able to quickly access the resources as you need them. So how important is supply chain digitization and embracing new technologies in the current climate, Kristy?
Well, I would say if you don't embrace tech now, you'll literally be left behind. I think we've been saying that for a few years now. So you really have no option. The industry has been ripe for more efficient advancement for decades, but now everyone has to embrace it, even at a faster pace due to the situation that we're in. Not just the rails and the multimodal providers, but also the smaller guys. As far as my company is concerned, we have been future proofing by researching and integrating new components for digital efficiency on what seems like a quarterly basis. Anything that can improve our processes, help our employees, benefit our customers, definitely will make the cut. If there's a positive ROI, if the efficiencies are there, it is worth considering and will continue to do so. Many people, for example, have likely made an investment into Zoom or other virtual communication tools, specifically more because of what happened this past year. Not that we didn't use these tools before, but to the extent that we need to now, and then on top of other tools as well, just to help us operate from day to day.
Excellent. Yeah, I know, we're we have kind of a broader footprint, and a lot of us here at Blume are out of the broader supply chain industry. And I'll kind of go back to one of the things that Keith was saying a minute ago on building a digital twin. And so I know, in supply chain, we've always found that a lot of times it's more important to be predictable than to be fast. and having predictability and, what the railroads are doing with precision railroading and, versus over the road, and being able to have that predictability, which really helps suppliers or shippers manage inventory levels, which is, one of the ultimate, the more important things in supply chain, and being able to, compete on level grounds with some of the bigger guys like, Amazon and Walmart. So anyway, I do think, being able to really understand the railroads and being able to provide not only the visibility that we've talked about, but also a better understanding of the ETAs and when cargo needs to get delivered. So, with that in kind of line, have the railroads been progressing in their own digitization journeys, and what are you experiencing there? Could the railroads be doing, what could the railroads be doing to better help your business?
Yeah, so I mean, to start off with, when I started, everything was paper and faxes and rail faxes for billing, calling in on the phone to trace a container. So I would say, obviously now things have come a long way from the rails. So even though the rails have historically like adapted slower to new technologies, now we can actually get our tracking via, EDI 322 messages as an example. They've also expanded upon the information that they share via APIs. From the drayage and terminal end, the information and visibility that carriers have access to has also come a long way. As far as, where or what the railroads can do to improve in one area, I think one of the biggest ones is really implementing tracking within their containers to get that visibility. That's something that the assets have out there, and that's something that my company competes against. And you also mentioned, the ETAs or consistency. Obviously, they're putting the PSR or implementing the PSR now, and that's been a little challenging as well. Hopefully, once we get through these times, we'll be able to get that consistency, because that's the biggest issue, I think, for everybody. We want customers to get their freight out of the ramps, timely, get those containers back. But sometimes, with the inconsistency of the trains, that can cause a lot of issues where the customer might be booked up for a week, for example, and now they can't take that box and it has to sit there. So I think those things in particular are ways that the railroads can definitely help our business get better, and obviously working with, customers like myself and talking about these things so that we can work together to overcome these challenges.
Excellent. Yeah, we work pretty closely with a lot of the North American railroads in trying to roll out new technologies in the intermodal space in particular. And I do know they have several things in the work that hopefully we'll introduce over the course of this year and next year, which will really help in that area. So putting on your, Keith was doing a minute ago, your crystal ball, looking into your crystal ball. What are your thoughts about these issues, and how will the impact of larger players like Amazon and Walmart change the rail market in the next few years?
So this is my take, or our take, that we talk about it in my company. I think it'll create challenging times for non-asset players within the industry. If Amazon and Walmart continue to negotiate those large contracts with the railroads, e-commerce is certainly not going away. It will undoubtedly grow as work from home becomes the new norm, if it already isn't for a lot of companies now. As it stands, 2020 was a very trying year for brokers with regard to capacity. And, 2 years from now, we'd likely be talking about new entrants to the e-commerce market, delivery drones, who knows? And then I also feel like with the continued growth of e-commerce and the important role that intermodal will continue to play, we are seeing, and we'll continue to see, the leading companies wanting to have more end-to-end control of their transportation network to include intermodal. Both Amazon and Walmart have invested in intermodal containers, and it only seems fitting that both Amazon and Walmart will continue to look to expand their intermodal container footprint as well. So I think there's, a lot of different things coming ahead. And I know, Keith brought up the autonomous piece of it too. There's a lot of different things going on, and I would say 5 or even 7 years ago when we talked about it, we sit there and think these things aren't going to happen. Well, they're coming up pretty fast here, so we'll see what happens.
Excellent. And any other thoughts, if we were to have this same, when we have this same conversation in 2023, a couple of years from now, what do you think we'll be talking about?
I do think that we'll be talking about more of the autonomous trucks. I think, I mentioned the drones coming into play. I think what Amazon and Walmart are doing, as I already mentioned, are things that we're watching, because that could change a lot of things for a lot of players in the industry on how things, are working, and hopefully we have some better, efficiencies and, situations with the railroads that make it a little bit easier for our customers, in these challenging times. I know it's a very complicated network, like Keith mentioned in the last, when he was talking. So, I just think moving as fast as we can to get to where we need to provide the efficiency, the transparency to the customers, so that they know their shipments are being, picked up on time, delivered on time. And that also means from the dray side too, as you mentioned, the dray capacity. That's been a challenging issue, not only with, the whole situation that's going on, but then, with weather. Weather always impacts that. And, it's like you get 2 steps ahead and now you're 5 steps back. So I still think there'll be some of the same issues, but just continuing to work on how we fix them and do better.
Yeah, I think, we talked a lot about IoT sensors on containers, and we talk about how that might be able to help. So in a couple of years, we're already seeing this in the marine world. So the marine containers, especially reefers, they have IoT sensors you can track. And we're helping a couple other companies in the marine world and in the domestic world that are applying these sensors to be able to track, not only the location, which is really important, because you want to know, where you can pick up a container. Maybe you could do a street turn. Maybe you can save empty miles by knowing that there's a container available at a distribution center nearby, and you can use that as the empty to start the move, making where the container doesn't have to go back to the rail yard. But other things that we're seeing in IoT is around, of course, temperature sensing and being able to even control temperature in some cases. And then, is a door open in a place where it shouldn't be? So is there a potential of theft? That's another area where we're, investing, looking at geofencing and being able to monitor, where that container is. And then the whole shock, the accelerometers that are being put on some of these, you can tell if the container was dropped in the rail yard or outside of the rail yard, if there's potential cargo damage. And so, that's all important. Same thing when you do the, maybe the trucking companies and the drayage carriers, and being able to kind of, track what's going on there, understand when the container is unloaded and when it's available for pickup if it's like a drop and hook. Those are some of the areas where Blume is also investing in this particular market.
Awesome.
So any other? So we can open it up for questions. Maybe it's a good idea to see if there's anyone out there that might have questions for Kristy or myself. So the question from Michael is, how do you reduce the 700-mile intermodal profit point for rail over road? Do you have a comment on that, Kristy? I think.
I mean, that's probably a tough one. I would say years ago, the rails really focused on trying to convert those smaller lanes to, from truck to rail. Actually, there was a big effort for that, and then it kind of went back the other direction. So I don't know. I think that's going to depend on the railroad and what makes sense for them, because there's a lot of lanes, that would fall within that. I would say even down to the 500-mile point at one time. So that's something that they need to work out, I think, within their network and what makes sense for them. You know, there's times where there's rail lanes even across the country that was difficult to even compete with price on the truck side. So, you know, again, the market and what the rail decides to do with the lanes that they're running, what makes sense for them is what's, you know, I feel is going to come out of that. You know, obviously we would like to be able to put more of that on the rail. We have customers ask us all the time, but sometimes it's just not as competitive, or the lanes have gone away.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, precision railroading, you know, and sometimes has an impact on that. And that's definitely, you know, where they have reduced the number of stops, the number of rail ramps, and, you know, and they're trying to optimize their points. But as we've also seen in some cases, you know, they've reintroduced those lanes. And so when they found that, and it's so important for your feedback. I mean, I do know that the railroads listen to that, and they understand, and you know they you know, try to apply their financial models against it and make sure it makes sense. But they definitely listen, and so you know I just you know, and we're all kind of a voice back to the railroads in many cases. So another question: how many containers do you think have Internet of Things sensors on board as a percentage of number of containers out there? Since the shipper doesn't own any of them, who would pay to put sensors on them? So I can answer a little bit of that. You may have a different perspective on that. I do know, you know, some of the more and more of the private containers, like Matson, for example, they're outfitting their dry containers. So I will tell you, you know, 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, Blume was involved in a lot of prototypes in sensor technology and putting sensor technology on dry and reefer and over the road and on intermodal. And you know, but the price point of the sensors just weren't there at that time, and so they didn't want to invest them except in high value cargo. Recently, though, there are companies that are putting sensors on both containers and even on chassis. And so now we're seeing more and more of that. But and I do know the railroads, the larger Class 1 railroads are looking at that. I can't elaborate a lot on kind of where they are in their process, but there's no questions. You know, there's value, and it is just a question of, you know, kind of where's that price point. Kristy, any other thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. The only thing I would have to add is just, you know, the cost of it is obviously on the railroads. I would think to work that out for them to get it on their equipment. The other companies, I mean, that's a cost that they pay themselves to get that equipment, you know, put in their trailers and containers and chassis, whatever it might be. So that's something that they have to make that decision. And again, I feel the way the industry is going, if these things don't get done, it's going to make it more challenging for those companies that have the assets to compete with companies that already have this technology.
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit more of that and say, you know, we are as a platform provider and also as a kind of a technology provider, we are investing in that area, and we know it's going to come, and we know, you know, when it is there, we certainly want to be ready. And like I said, we're already doing this some on the marine world, and for and even for domestic for private containers. And chassis are equally challenging. I mean, finding chassis sometimes is more challenging than finding the containers. So, you know, we work with companies like DCLI and the other chassis providers out there to, you know, to evaluate these technologies and do prototypes and proof of concepts. And we see the value. It's really about price point.
Right.
All right. I think, how are we doing on time, Amy, Kurt?
Just about up. So if you guys want to give some last minute final thoughts, that'd be great.
Kristy, any, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, thank you for having me on today. I truly appreciate it and the partnership. You know, obviously, because we're a big user of the rail, 80% of our revenue, to be quite honest. You know, we're happy to be here and also partners with Blume and what they're doing. So we're excited to see what's coming up next, and, you know, just tell everyone to be patient. We're all in this together, and, you know, we'll get through this, and hopefully things will change sooner than later. Thank you all.
Yeah, equally. I would like to thank everybody for listening in today, and I've enjoyed the other sessions immensely. They're educational for sure. You know, great people out there thinking about these problems, and you know, as I said, the railroads, you know, they are investing in different areas. We work with most of them, and you know, there will be new you know, new technologies, and more importantly, new functionality rolling out that will really, you know, help the railroads and help all of the shippers around, you know, be able to provide a much better service.